Okay, so we'll do the same. The meeting link, I guess, or the recording of it will be automatically visible to you in the calendar link, I suppose. But in case it is not, we'll also upload this recording to the uh, relevant YouTube link, to which you can watch it later as well. See if I can let it. Okay, looks like many are still celebrating Dashera. Uh, so the strength has drastically reduced in this session as compared to the other ones. Anyway, so we'll get started with what we have planned for this session today. Well, as the quiz one is approaching, so we are planning to not introduce too many new complex concepts as of now. So what we'll be doing is we will be working on the practice lab assignments that were given to you as parts of week 3 and week 4, if I'm not wrong. So there were two practice lab assignments that were given to you. Yes, two for week 3 and one for week 4. So today we'll be working on those, and we'll see that what a typical implementation could look like. So before we get started with that, would like to know, has anyone started implementing that a tic-tac-toe upgraded application, or probably that password meter application for week 4? Okay, Kapil has started doing that. Has anyone finished it? Okay, great. So Kapil has finished it. Is there anyone else who has tried attempting that lab assignment problem statement given and have made some progress to it, if not all? Okay, not about week 4. So what about week 3? So there was some upgradation that was given to the tic-tac-toe application that was used for the demo purposes in week 3 lectures as well. Has anyone tried to upgrade that application? So if I'm not wrong, you were supposed to add, think the number of loss and wins registered by each of the users.
Yeah, sir, I tried it, but like in the view just code, I didn't know I didn't get to
Are you able to
implement
get through
that.
it?
Yeah, yeah, I tried that, sir. Like
Okay,
in
okay,
the
you tried.
Python and the JavaScript code, I've implemented that, but in
It's
Vue.js
okay,
part,
means you can just do it on the Vue.js part. Does not matter whether we do it on the other one. The Vue.js
oh,
is something that you need to do.
okay, okay. That was I didn't try it.
Okay, okay. Were you able to get that working?
Yeah, sir, I think I should do that.
Okay. All right. So we'll also discuss that in the today's session. But initially, I would like to start with the major assignment. That is week 4, because that is something that needs to be built from the scratch. There is no code base available for that primarily with us. So we'll be writing the code right from the scratch for the week 4 practice life assignment. That is a password meter application. So, as an overview, what we are going to do today is, firstly, we are going to work on the password meter application, where the user interface is going to look quite simple, where it can have a simple text box. Well, of course, if you want, you can go ahead and improve the aesthetics of that application later on. But today we'll be focusing on uh, the application from a functional point of view. So the UI is going to be quite simple. As I mentioned, it will just have a simple enough text box or a text area where the user can enter some text. And apart from that, there will be some labels on that web page itself. And each of that label is going to, say something about the password, or it is going to probably, it is probably going to refer to one of the conditions or one of the constraints that the password should have. For example, a password should be having at least one uppercase, one lowercase, one special symbol, one digit, or whatever type of constraints you want to put there. And just to make it a little bit fancy, what we can do is we can basically change the background colors of each of these conditions as and when the user tries to enter or change some text in the input text box that is given on the web page. So according to the text, the background color or even the color of the text uh, uh, of those conditions will accordingly change. So would like to start sharing my screen. Let me see. So I hope my screen is now visible.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I'll just open the post portal once. So the problem statement looks simple enough. Create a password input field with the four text labels next to it. These labels are to indicate whether the password has at least one lowercase, uppercase, number, and special character. Initially, all the labels will have a red background. As you start typing, the background color of the labels will change accordingly. All right, so I guess we can now get started with it. Okay, so I'll just create a new project. Okay, so what we will need here is we will need a HTML file, and we will need one JS file as well. So let's say the name of the JS file can be app.js. For HTML, we will write some simple enough code. Say this title is going to be perfect meter. Can someone paste the Vue.js CDN link for Vue 2 version in the chat? Meanwhile, I'll try to type some other things that are required here. So what do we need on this web page is, let's say we can have an heading. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so firstly, we are going to have an heading here. Let's say it is going to say password meter page. And right after this, we can have a input text box where the user is supposed to type the password. So this is going to be of type text. If you want, you can also make it of password type. That means the text won't be visible as the user types in. But for now, we are keeping it of text type so that we can also see what type of character is being entered. All right, that seems to be good enough right now. And now we will be having multiple labels as the problem statement suggests. So each of that label is going to indicate whether a certain condition is satisfied or not. So for that label, let's say we can have password has at least one lowercase character. I'll copy this. One, two, three, four. Okay. So the second one can be uppercase. The third condition is the password has at least one special character. The fourth condition can be uh, okay, a digit. think these 4 conditions are good enough. Is there anything else that we need? 4 text labels. All right, this is fine. So let us see how it is looking right now. Okay, so everything is coming in a single line. So let us try to add a few div tags, or instead of wasting time adding div tags, I would just like to go with BR tag as of now.
Excuse me, sir. May I add something?
Yes, yes, sure.
So we can use UL here also, no?
Yeah, we can add that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can add anything. Means whatever
Sure. Sure.
you think will improve your
Yeah.
UI.
All right.
I'm just trying to create a minimal version of it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So is there anything else? Okay, BR. I think I can add one BR here as well. This looks okay. Maybe just before this, I can have application here. Like enter their password. Okay, so our UI is almost ready. I don't think we'll be adding much to this UI. Now, the only thing that is remaining is the JS part of it. That means how do we create a view instance, what all things we'll be requiring for such minimal application to be implemented. So we'll see all those things in the JavaScript part of it. So the very first thing that we'll be required to do here is to create a Vue.js instance, or instead to create a view instance. So how can we create a view instance? Firstly, if you want to assign that view instance into a variable, you can do that as well. But in case there is no need to do that, you can even directly create a view instance without actually assigning it into a variable. Okay. So for now, what I'm doing is I'm directly creating it. If needed, we'll be assigning it to a variable, and if that variable has to be referenced somewhere later on, that is a different case. So the very first attribute while defining a view instance is what?
EL.
It is EL. What does EL stand for?
I don't know what it stands for, but it's basically to bind the name.
EL is basically element. So that is going to reference one of the HTML elements, like in your DOM. So that reminds me of one more thing. We forgot to assign an ID or class to one of our HTML elements. If you want, you can even create a div tag here. But right now, I'm just assigning it to the body tag. Or let's create one div tag. It's okay. Indentation. So here I am going to assign this something as, let's say, meter, something like that. You can assign any name, whatever you like. So here, what should I write? Shall I write meter here?
Hash meter.
Since we have created this meter as an ID, so we need to specify that this is an ID. If this would have been a class, then we should have used dot here. But currently, we have defined it as an ID, so we should be using an hash symbol. This is how we reference the IDs.
So we can also connect with the body tag, right?
Sorry?
In that EL, we can put the body, and that will it connect to the body tag?
If the body has an ID or a class that you are
Means
referencing here,
ID or a class is necessary for this, right?
yes, yes. Okay, the next thing that we require here is what? So what I'm doing right now is I'm just creating a skeleton of this view instance. We may not be using all of these properties, all of these things, but right now I'm just trying to write a basic structure or a skeleton that how a view instance looks like. So the second thing that we can have here is a data object. Remember that it is going to be an object in case you are creating a view instance, but when you will create view components, then this data must be a function. I'm trying to compare it with the components because in the previous session you already have worked with components. So after data, what we can have is we can have computed. So these are the computed properties. Apart from computed, what can we have is we can have methods. Okay, is there anything else remaining?
Watch.
Watch. Okay. Apart from that, you can have lifecycle hooks. But I don't think we'll be requiring lifecycle hooks today for this application. So yeah, this completes the basic skeleton of a view instance. Okay, now we need to think that how many data variables we require for this application. So let's think about it. The very first thing we are going to do is we have to keep a trace of what is the text that is being entered in this input text box. So for that, let's create a variable and let's name that variable as say password or maybe just pass. It's good enough. Since we are using pass here and we want to use this pass variable as something that can track what is the text that is being entered into this input text box as and when the user types. So how can we do that?
View bind. You can actually bind also, or you can model.
Okay, what do you think? What would be
Here, bind should work because it's a one-way binding only, right? It's not that we're going to change the.
Okay, so what we will be required to do here is we have to do some calculations on this pass variable here in some of our either computed or methods or watch. In one of these things, we'll be required to process this pass value because we need to find out whether this password string has these many characters, whether this has an uppercase character, a lowercase character, or things like that. So what do we want is that whatever the user types here in this input text box, that value we should be able to access that value in a JS file. So for that to happen, we will be using two-way data binding here. Now, what is two-way data binding? That means whatever user will be typing on the DOM, that value will be available in the JS file. And in case your JS file is making any change to this variable called pass, and that is used with double binding or with two-way binding in this HTML file, then whatever changes that will be made in this pass variable here in the JS side will also be reflected on the DOM. That means on the HTML side.
But in this case, won't a single one-way binding work because it is unlikely that we will change the password in the JS.
Okay, so how do you know that what is the text that
one-way
is being
binding
entered in
should
this
work.
input text box?
If I one-way binding, then the JS script should be able to view the text, right? Only thing is,
yeah, but one-way data binding is that means you are getting the value from your JS to HTML.
oh, okay. So that's be two-way then.
So we will be requiring a two-way data binding here, so that the pass variable, whatever changes that will be made to it, will be available to JavaScript file, and whatever changes that are made using JavaScript file should be available on the DOM on the HTML side as well. So what is the syntax to achieve two-way data binding?
View model.
So we will be using the model here, and
Pass.
what should we do?
So equal to
Okay,
the
what should we do now?
password variable name. Yeah.
Okay. So we can directly write a variable name. I hope it is pass. Yes, it is. Now, whatever we will type here, that will also be shown here, or the value will be transferred here as well. And if you will try to access this value fast, that is basically the updated value that how it stands right now on the user interface. Okay, so this is what we require for password. Now we will be requiring a few of the variables for these things also, because we also have to keep the track of which of these things or which of these conditions are satisfied on the UI, so that we can process those results on the JavaScript file as well, and accordingly change the UI if required. So what we'll be doing is we'll be creating one variable each for each of these labels. Okay, so let's say there will be a one variable to keep track whether password contains lowercase character. So it will be kind of a flag which will have a Boolean value. Say, if this condition is satisfied, then that variable will hold value true. Otherwise, it is going to hold false. Please give me a minute, please. Just a minute. There is some noise coming in. Just a minute. Yeah. Uh, Sorry for the delay. I hope there is no noise coming in right now. Am I clear with the audio?
Yes, sir. Yeah, your audio is clear. Now it is clear.
All right. So what I was saying is, okay, we have created a V model here. Okay. So now what do we need is we need 4 separate variables to indicate which of these conditions are satisfied at a given time. So what we can do is, let's say I can create these many variables, upper, lower, digit, or special, but maybe
Just giving condition 1, 2, 3, that may be better off.
I'm thinking whether do we need 4 separate variables or not. Okay, so what we can do is we can have an object. Let's say we have an object called obj, and we can have those 4 things as the properties of this object. Instead of creating 4 separate variables, we can have those as a properties of a single object. So now what we can have is, let's say, uppercase value is going to be, I believe, false. Then we have lowercase value will remain false, and we have a digit, and then we have special character. Or we can change this obj name to something else. Maybe what are we doing here? Fact, something like this. This will help us to track which all conditions are satisfied. Now, so based on the data or based on the values these variables have, we have to change the background color of this label. So what do you think? Do we need two-way data binding here or one-way data binding?
So this, based on your response, I feel can be one-way data binding because it's coming from JavaScript to here.
Exactly. So one-way data binding would suffice here because we don't want any information to be transferred from HTML to JS file. We just need the information from JS file coming into this HTML. That is more than sufficient for us. So what we can do is we can use one-way data binding. And how do we achieve one-way data binding?
We bind.
We achieve it using vbind.
We can use colon also.
Yeah, that is a shortcut. So now, can someone tell me which attribute shall I use so that I can change the background color of this text on the web page? How can I change it? Which property or which attribute shall I bind it to?
Style. Style.
Yeah, I think there is some suggestion in the chat. Drag.lowercase. What is it? Is there some typo? Okay. Yeah, so we have to bind it with style here. So what is the value that we have to provide to the style? Which property or which CSS property we need to change here is we need to change background color. Okay, so there are two things. Now you have to understand what is the difference between what I say kebab case and one is camel case. So if I write it like this, background color, and here the value to this background color is going to be what someone has sent in the chat. So yeah, what Afnan has sent in the chat, this is going to be the value because track is the variable, is the object that we have defined in our JS file, and we want to access a property of this object that is lowercase. Still, this is not making any sense
Boolean.
because
This is Boolean, sir. So we'll have to check that. If it is true, then should be green or red, whatever, based on the.
exactly. So instead, what I would like to do here is I would like to just change the color. I would make it red initially.
Okay, that is also a good idea.
What I have done is I have just changed the value of all of these properties to red, so that when this value will come in here, this will automatically reflect to be red here. So what will happen is background color property would be assigned a value of red, and this background color would turn into red color. The similar thing we have to do with the others as well. So I'll just copy this and paste it with others. What is the parameter that is going to change? What is going to change?
No.
Uppercase.
Yeah, correct. So we have to change this property name here. It will become uppercase in this case. In the next one, it is going to become special character. So I guess it is special. At least one digit. So I guess it is digit. This is the only thing that was required to be changed. Okay, I hope it is okay. Okay, I have not yet added the view CDN. Someone had forwarded me the CDN link. Let me add it now. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Should be SRC, no? There's a typo in that attribute. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay, so now if I will open this web page, what I should be able to see there is a text box with a heading password meter page. Along with that, we should be able to see 4 labels, and they all should be having a background of red. Let's see. So this is not having the red background. Why is it so? Color.
Hello?
Yeah.
So I think the track dot lowercase should be in quotes inside because this background color thing, I think it takes it in quotes form. And here it's plain red. Is it? That is the reason.
I don't think so. That should happen. Let me see. There is something else that is wrong. Let me see if view is active on this page. Okay, I don't have view active on this page, so let me just open this. Yeah. So, so
Okay, so
Vue.js is
I think so you need to run it on a HTTP server, otherwise it will not fetch right in the file context. I think that HTTP requests are not being fetched because of, I think, cross origin and all those things. It's probably it's a good idea to kind of run a live server and then try it.
no, I don't think so. It should happen. But anyways, let me.
Yeah, because it happens sometimes. If you try to use it from file content context, it doesn't load that.
Sir,
Just
can
see
you
that
try
view
in glue?
exists.
Okay, you
Okay,
can
I got it.
try. Yeah.
So see, what we have done is we have done everything, but we have not embedded this app.js script in this HTML file. Okay, so that means this HTML doesn't know what this track is or what this track.lowercase is. Right, so we need to embed the script that we have written app.js in this HTML file also. So it is script src equals to app.js. Now I believe it should work. So we need to remove that code. So since we are on the live server, we don't need to refresh our page again and again. So I'll just stay on the edge instead of moving to the Chrome. All right, yeah. So I guess this is working, but the red color here seems to be too dark. I don't want it to be that much dark. Does anyone has any suggestion? How can we make it a bit light or make it a bit fade? Okay, we can do one thing. Uh, okay, so we are changing this value again and again, but yeah, anyways, it's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the color code here. So RGBA, since I'm using alpha value here, so I should be able to control the brightness of the color. Okay. Maximum value that is allowed here is 255. So what will I say is the value of red would be 255, green will be 0, blue will be 0, and A, that is the brightness. Let's try keeping it 0.4. See how does it look. K 0.6. I think this is okay. So what will I do is I'll simply copy this value and paste it for others as well. Okay, this is looking nice now. So is there any doubt why I did this? Why I changed red into this color code? Any doubt on this? Okay, no doubts. I believe that we can have one more condition here. Thinking about it initially, but maybe now we can add it. It can be the password has at least say 5, 6, 7. Let's say 7 characters. So since we have created a new property called len here, I'll do the same.
Excuse me, sir. So just to add here, so I think we should like make the colors like constant, right? And then we refer to that because otherwise, if we change it in one place, I mean, if we wish to change it later on, it would require us to change everywhere. So it will be better to have a constant, right? But in this case,
Okay.
it is fine. Like I mean, it is okay. for this.
Yeah,
For
sure,
this
sure. So
one.
what you
Yeah.
can do is you can create a variable and assign
Mm.
this value to that variable and use that variable directly
Okay.
instead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Now we should be having 5 conditions. Yes, yeah. Okay, so this seems good enough. Now we have to work on the logic part of it. Okay. So since we already have a pass variable that is binded two-way with the HTML, so what we can now do is we have the access to this pass variable. That means whatever the user is entering, this pass variable is also getting updated with that new value. What we can do is we can use computed properties, but instead I would like to make our work a little bit easier. So what will we do is we will use watch here. Right? We'll be using watches because the moment user makes any change to the value that is there in the text input, the value of this pass variable will change because this is how we have binded it. And the moment it changes, it will be caught by the watcher. So what we can do is we can create a watcher for this pass variable. What is the syntax? What is the format in which a watcher for a variable can be created? We just need to write the variable name. And after that, we can have this. So it is basically going to accept two parameters. One is going to be the old value. The other one is going to be the new value. But in our case, we don't have anything to do with the old value. What we need is we just want the new value because that is the thing or that is the value on which we'll be running all of our processing, all of our calculations. So I will just say that we have new value here and we'll be using this new value in order to find out whether we should change the background color of a label or not.
So the first parameter to this function is the new value, and the second one I believe is the old value. Is it?
Yes.
All right. Sure. Sure.
Okay. So now, can anyone give a suggestion? What shall we do? The moment user will make any change to this text that is being typed into this input text box, this will be caught by this watcher. And whatever the new value would come, that would be given to this new value variable here. So what can we do with this value?
I guess all the string methods in JavaScript. First is you can check the length easily, right? If length,
Correct, definitely.
new
So
value
we
dot
can
length.
check if new value, sorry, new value dot length is greater than what are we expecting it to be? We are expecting it to be at least 7 characters. So if it is greater than 6, so we are using JavaScript, not Python. So if this happens, what should we do here?
Set that length to true. Sorry. Now again we have let's define a color constant, then we can use that color, right?
Yeah. So since we are using red here, I think in that
It should
in
be
case of
green.
yeah, we can use green then. Okay. So for green, what we should do is we'll be changing length to what? RGBA. It will be 0, 255, 0, and I'll keep the alpha value same, that is 0.6. Is there anything that I'm missing here?
This.
For length, there is nothing. Yeah.
I'm
This
missing this
Again,
here.
as Arfan mentioned, we might want to define a constant and set that constant to all of them.
Yeah, I guess that's what Afnan suggested a few minutes ago. So yes, we can do that as well. So there are basically two things that currently I am missing here. The very first thing is you cannot directly access length. How do you need to access it? You need to access it using this object name track. This is the very first thing.
Yeah. This dot, do we need this dot track dot length, right? Yeah.
Yes. Firstly, we need to use track because len is a property of this track object, and I cannot even use this track object directly here. I need to reference it using this, and only I will be able to access this value. So this is the very basic condition that we have written. Let's see if this condition is working or not. So I believe I'm running on live server, so changes would have been automatically updated. if I type a long one, so yeah, you can see that this background color has turned into green. So I'll just refresh it. So yeah, this condition is working fine. Let
Excuse me,
us.
sir. Can you try one thing? So if you go there and type a long string and then kind of remove some characters, I want to
Yes,
see
yes,
that
yeah, that is an
changing
interesting case. We'll come on
back
to that.
again. Yeah, yeah.
That is an interesting case.
So I just
So
want to
we'll try
see.
to address that issue in the session itself, but let us just try to get a basic version working.
Okay, okay. Understood. Thank you.
So, okay, this was the most basic condition and we are able to get it working now. We have to work on the other four conditions. Those are uppercase, lowercase, digit, and special character. Any ideas?
So is contains, mean, do you have those things? Is uppercase, lowercase, those things are there? JavaScript? I don't know the string methods of JavaScript, so we'll have to.
Okay, so these things like is upper, is lower, these things don't exist. So maybe what I can show you is we have one char code at, or we have one code point at. Let's see what this char code at is. So it basically returns us an integer between, okay, I think this is going to suffice in our case. This is going to return us the UTF-16 code. We have one more thing called code point add. Maybe I can show that as well. Code point add. JavaScript. I think this returns us the Unicode value. Okay, so we can use anything. We can use char code at, or we can use code point at. Okay, let's try with char code at. How does it work? So what we are going to do here is we are going to iterate over this string. So since this is the new value, this is the latest value that is there on the text box on the HTML page. We will be iterating over the string. We'll be iterating over each and every character of the string and see, and we'll try to find out what the UTF-16 value of that particular character is. So if we want to iterate, definitely we'll be using a loop here. So what I can do is I can use a for loop. I want to keep things simple enough. I don't want to use I off or I in. Maybe we can use that at a later part of the session. But right now, I just want to keep it simple. So I'm using the standard for loop. So what I have done is I have created a variable called I, where what is the terminating condition? What should be the terminating condition here?
New value dot length.
Correct. Should be new value dot length. Should be this. And we should be incrementing this value afterwards. This is what we have. So what we will do now here is, let's say, create one more variable, current character. And how are we going to get the UTF value of this current character? Can anyone suggest?
Char code at.
So we will say new value. In subscript, we will say I, that is going to represent the index. And after that, we can use char code at. I don't think this is how we use it. Let me see what is the correct syntax. So char at. Okay. Need to pass this I here.
Yeah.
So this current char is going to have the UTF-16 value that is stored at that particular index. Now, what can we do with that UTF-16 value? We can compare it with our normal English-based characters. That means we can compare if that value is greater than A or less than Z, and accordingly we can find out if that particular character falls under a given range or not. So the very first condition I'm going to put here is if current char is greater than equals to A. Okay, how do we use AND operator in JavaScript? I hope you should.
Double ampersand.
All right. And current char, it should be less than equals to what?
Z.
It should be lowercase z. If this condition is true, what we should be doing here is
This dot track dot length, sorry, lowercase. Yeah.
what length? It is lowercase.
Lowercase. Yeah.
The
Again,
value
copy
is
paste
going to
that
be.
green. Yeah.
Please let me know if I'm missing any semicolons at any place. We sometimes miss putting these semicolons. Okay, so this is what we'll do.
But we don't need these semicolons, right?
Yeah,
Actually,
we don't
right?
need this semicolon, but I would say it's a good practice to keep these semicolons. Because what will happen if you will try to write all of the lines or all of the code in a single line? Sometimes the interpreter will also throw an error.
Excuse me, sir. May I ask a question here?
Yes.
So since our condition was to check only for one lowercase character, I mean, like we have put it like at least one lowercase character should be there.
Yes.
So if we have found even one character that satisfies this very condition, then I
Yes.
think we can break out of this loop, right? We don't need to necessarily go through all the characters. If we have found one match, then I think we can break at that point itself.
Yes,
No,
we
no,
can do that.
upfront, because we
But
will
right
check
now
for,
we also
we'll
have to
other
check
four
for other
conditions.
conditions, other ranges. Whether this falls under the uppercase category or digit category and all.
Okay, so same loop we'll be using for all those
Exactly.
conditions.
Yes.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
So the second condition is going to be for the uppercase. But what do you think? Shall I use if
Else.
condition or an else if?
Else.
If we will use else if here, we are trying to optimize some percentage of code. Yeah. Anyways.
Actually, a large percentage. Yeah.
So now I am just going to use the same condition. I'll just change the A and Z here. So this small a, this will become capital A this time. And this will become capital Z. And the same thing. This will just get changed to upper. So this is for upper. The next thing is we are going to check for the digits. So else if current char, if it is greater than equals to 0, and if it is less than equals to less than equals to 9. So what we'll be doing is we'll be changing the digit this time. So this is also done. What is the last thing remaining? Last thing remaining is the special character. So can anyone tell me what condition shall I put for special character? Does anyone know the range? Yes.
Sir, can we simply put else here, like else this dot track dot specific?
So if we exclude lowercase, uppercase, digits, what all things we can have here, will we be left with only the special characters? I think space is something that we need to exclude because that should not be considered as a special character in case of passwords.
Yeah, but are the special characters, they are not in sequence, no? I think there is a break between them.
Sorry?
The special characters, they don't come in a sequence.
Yeah,
like the
correct. So I
alphabets.
guess we need to check for both of those ranges. Let me see. So where do they start from? Okay, so we should not be considering the spaces here. So we shall start with this exclamation mark. So we are starting with 33 and we have to stop at 47. So from 33 to 47.
No, but typically the plus and minus, they are not considered special case characters, no? It stops with brackets.
Okay, so
But
we should be stopping it at 41 is what you are saying.
yeah.
So from 33 to 41. So 33.
It should be 33 in.
Correct. It should not be in quotes this time. It should be less than and equal to 41. Is that okay? 41. Okay, so when this series will start again, it will start from 58, I guess. This is colon. And it will end at 64. Or I think no, that's not the correct thing. Then we have from 19.
Because typically, whatever you find on the, above the new digits in the keypad, they are considered special characters. So then only at is there. That is 64. Only that is.
Okay, so I think we don't need to consider everything else. Okay, so we just need to somehow include this @ character as well. The decimal value for this is 64. So we need to accommodate this 64 value. Can someone tell me how can I accommodate this 64 value?
So we need an OR condition here, sir.
Or,
Right?
no? Yeah.
Yeah. And the symbol for that is,
Will be using OR.
double
Double
pipes.
pipe. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, if it is
Because
equals to
generally
what?
colons and all, they are not allowed in passwords typically. So
Sorry?
that is why colon and angle brackets and all those are not typically allowed in passwords. That is why it's good to exclude them. Just the add is the one that we need to include.
So we have
Yeah.
included this @ here with this condition.
Should be fine, I guess.
The condition that we need to change here is expression. Sorry, not the condition, the property of the object. So I hope we should be okay with this logic. Let me see. Right, and here we have everything well. Okay, let's see if that works. So this is already refreshed. If I type A, it's not working. So if I type A here, it should get caught at this level. This is getting caught. We are changing this dot track dot lowercase to.
So just a question, sir. Is
Yeah.
there any difference if we put it in double quotes or in single quote? I think it should not make a difference, right? In generally in other languages, what happens is that when you put something in double quotes, it is considered as a string, whereas a single quote only would be considered as a character.
Yeah, this is how it works in Bash. Yeah.
Exactly. But in this case, in JavaScript, I think there is no such distinction as far as I can remember.
Yeah, I don't think it should.
Yeah.
Give you any problem. But yeah, let me try to
then
find
probably there is something problematic with this char code at. I think that is not the right method, perhaps.
Okay. Let us see in the dev tools if the value is getting updated. So it is 255 to 55 only. The value of pass is getting changed. However, these values are not changing. Why is it so? So this length is fine. I++ is also okay.
So
Let me try to.
it is mentioned in the documentation. So I just took a look at it. So it was mentioned that it is returning an integer. So like if we give it a string like that we have given in this case, A is there. So
Yes.
would it automatically get kind of converted into
Yes,
that?
we'll stick with.
It will. Okay. Then it is correct. Should work then. I don't know. What's the problem then?
So we are getting the values at this place 103, 104. So that means the control is reaching here. the value here is also not changing. It's 255, 255, and 255. Let me try to do one more thing. So it is giving us false.
Then probably that coerce thing is not happening. It is not getting converted into an integer.
Okay, let's see if we use. Well, it should be. It is JavaScript.
Yeah. Single quote. Would you try that? I think
Okay, let's see.
should not make a difference, but I.
Let me directly try putting
Yeah.
numbers here. So capital A would be 97, I guess, and it would end up at 122. Let's see. Yeah, this is working. Not sure why it is not doing that coercion implicitly. It should have been done. But anyways, let's see. So I'll just change all of these strings to their corresponding decimal values. So capital A, it is 65. And if we talk about capital Z, so it would be 70, 80, 90. Similarly, 0, I guess it would be 48. And it should be 8 opening 50, then 57. It's 57. This is fine, and the same condition is there for special characters too. Okay, so now I guess it should work fine. If we enter A, so this is getting fulfilled. For capital B, it is also getting fulfilled. For special character, let's say, it's okay. And then we have one digit, let's say 3. That is also fine. J. All right. So I'll just remove these debugging messages as of now. I hope this is not looking too congested here. Let me try to create some spaces here. All right, so now it is working fine. What we are able to do is we are able to change the background colors of all of these labels if the user is entering the required number of characters or is satisfying any of the conditions that are specified here. But of course, like Afnan pointed out before, it is just working for one way. That means if I try to enter some text, A, B, 6, this, all of this, so we need one special character. So yeah, this is okay. Let's say if this is the password, that should be completely fine. If this is a a UI or a user interface, and the user is trying to use it in order to decide whether a password is a strong one or a weak one or average one or whatever it is. But the problem here is that if I try to remove these characters, and what I do is if I make this entire text box empty, then still the background color of all of these labels don't turn back to red, but it should be, because now there is nothing in the text box and none of the conditions is being satisfied at this given time. So that means there is some issue with our code. We also need to take care if a user, let's say, deletes some of the characters, and those characters are essential to satisfy a certain conditions, a certain condition that is defined here in this web page. So does anybody has any suggestion? What can we do here in order to compensate that part as well?
Well, the obvious choice would be to kind of, if any one of the conditions is not satisfying, which means it is false, then we will have another else there, and it will kind of revert back to the original, I mean, red color. That is one way to do that. But I mean, there are optimizations I think possible, because we only have two states, right? Either it will be red or green, right? So
Yes.
if it were a Boolean, which is not the case right now, then it would have been easier, I guess. But in this case, changing all those strings is a bit tedious.
Okay, but even if you are saying, let's say if I go with your suggestion and I put an else condition here with each of these. Okay, so what I do is I convert all of these else if to if, and I put an else condition, a counterpart to each of those conditions. What
Right, sir, because
happens, let's say if a lowercase character is not caught here, or let's say if it is caught here, what happens when we move to the different to the next condition?
in this case, directly putting an else, I guess, would not be working. But we will have to separate out those conditions, and then only we can put else, is what I believe.
Okay, anything else that we can do?
So are booleans also considered as 0 or 1 in JavaScript? Is that the case?
Yes, they will be.
Probably it is, right? So I was thinking along those lines in the very initial part of the code itself, that we can have an array, having those two strings of RGB colors, right? And based on those, the value of those conditions, we will assign based on the index that is there, right? If it is like 0, then the 0th color would be like red. If it is 1, which means the condition is being satisfied, then automatically it will pick from that green slot.
But ultimately, we need to put those if and else condition.
No, then in that case, I think you would not require an else, right, sir? Because the condition itself is acting like an index. Because you just said
Okay, so
that.
what we are saying is that instead of doing it here, what we are doing is this dot tracker dot lowercase, you will directly assign whatever that array is and a
Color
particular
of
given index.
that condition. Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Similar
what
to-
happens if a user deletes a character?
So that condition would immediately become false, right, sir?
Okay, so if a user is deleting the character, we'll come back to this condition here, and yes, we would be able to change. Yes, this could
It'll
also
it'll
be
become false, and then the index would automatically thereby change, and hence the color will reflect there.
correct. That can be done. Yes,
That is like the shorter way to do it.
we can do that. Okay, but for that, we will have to create an array, and we'll have to change a lot of our implementation that we have written so far.
Right, sir. Right.
So maybe any suggestion based on what we have done right now?
Then probably the easiest way is to kind of separate out these conditions. I mean, like the code point checking for each separate class of characters, and then putting else in each of those, and based on that, assigning the color. That is one
Okay,
another
let me
approach.
tell you one of the simplest way. Of course, that is not something that can be optimized, or sorry, I should be saying it in a different way. This could be even a lot more optimized, but right now I'm just doing it for the purpose of simplicity.
Okay.
So what I'm
So
doing is,
initially, okay, yeah, that is also a good approach. So initially, sort of resetting those colors to red by default every time we run this method, and then since we are rechecking all those conditions, it would automatically be
every time it will refresh.
updated as appropriate. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that is like the easiest way.
Okay, so digit, and we have special, lowercase, and we have uppercase. So just adding these 5 lines is going to do some kind of magic. So let's say if I enter some text here, 4, this is in uppercase, let's say J, and some any random characters here. So we are able to, get all of these conditions satisfied. But what happens, let's say right now the length of the string is something more than 7 or more than 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the length of this string from 7 to something this, let's say just 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So see, what happens is as soon as the length of the string went below 7, then it automatically turned back into red. Similarly, if I am going to remove this this percentage symbol here, then this special character label will also turn into red color. Similarly, if I remove this J, then the lowercase will turn back to red. Now the uppercase will turn back to red, and now the digit. So what is happening right now is we have made this web page interactive enough that the user can make use of this page in order to decide whether a password is strong or weak or average, at least in terms of these conditions. Of course, not in real world, but if we talk about these conditions, in that aspect, the user can decide whether a given password is strong or weak. Now, what else can we improve in this application is, right now we are just changing the background color of all of these labels from red to green or green to red. What we should be doing here is we should be giving a password meter kind of thing here. That is going to suggest the strength of the password in numbers or in percentage. Let's say, what is the uh, strength percentage of the current password? So it can be 50%, 60%, 70%, or whatever it is, depending upon how many conditions are satisfied. So let us just try to add that functionality as well. It is not going to take much of our time. So what we should do here is we will be adding a password meter kind of label.
Sir, can I ask something?
Yes, sure.
The functionality that you just showed, right? It
Yes.
was more to do with the watch.
Yes.
Because as you made any change, the watch gets updated. Is that so?
Yes.
Okay. So the watch, any interaction that you do, the watch repeats that loop.
So what we have done is we have created a watch on pass. That means what we are doing is we are watching this pass variable. Whenever the value of this pass variable changes, this function would be triggered.
Okay,
That means
got
for every change that the user is making on that input text field, this entire definition is running for every change.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So that is why I was saying that this is not one of the most optimized implementations, but we are doing it here for the purpose of simplicity. So what we can have here is we can have one more label that will say password strength. Okay, sorry, password strength, and we can define it as, maybe we can say good, bad, or we can say in terms of numbers as well. What do you think? What would be better, a percentage or a message?
So a
Yes, but
message is better, perhaps. I think. I mean, we can use anything, but I think if it is a message, then it is kind of conveying more information. Is what I think.
so let's go with the message. What we should do here is we should create one more variable
Because
here.
just because strength of the password is showing as 100%, you cannot be kind of 100% sure that this is going to be the best password. So that
Yeah,
is
of course.
yeah.
So yeah, the strength is going to be, let's say initially it is going to be very poor or something, or maybe we can say no password or nothing there. Or maybe please enter a password. This is the initial message when the user will open this application for the first time and does not have anything in the text input box shown. Please enter a valid password. So after doing all of this, what we can do is we can put a logic here itself, but maybe in order to make our implementation more modular, I would instead do it in the methods. I would create one method here, and I would call that method from this watch. Okay, at the end. So let's say I can create one function, say calculate strength. Okay, so now what can we do here is, let's say we can create a variable, say c, which is initialized with 0. And we'll iterate over this track array. So what will I do is I'll say element of, this time I'm using of, I can even use in, but you can use anything, whatever you want. So of, what is it is going to do is it is going to iterate over the, over what? Over keys or over values?
So this is an object, sir.
I'm using element
so
of.
in the case of object, I think we cannot object by itself is not iterable, is what was mentioned also in the lecture, right? So in this case, I think it is necessary for us to use in, or otherwise we can use that object.keys or object.values method, because of,
Correct.
I
So
think
I should
directly
be iterating over the keys here.
keys, yes.
So element in track. So after that, what I should do is we should check if, so element is what? Element is representing an index. So we should check if track, Okay, we should be putting it in parentheses. Track dot element or instead track element.
So sir, this is a string, right? So then how would we be checking that like whether it is satisfied or not satisfied, right?
You know that if the condition is satisfied, then the value of this color code would be 0 to 55. 0.
Okay, okay. So in some sense, we are taking that string itself as true or false.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Understood.
So it should be
Then
0.
in this case, I think it should exactly match. Otherwise, if any one of the spaces or something like gets
Correct.
misplaced, then it will be like giving us false positives.
Correct.
That is why
I'm
it's
checking.
always better to use primitive types like boolean and all.
Yeah, correct. So I just
But in this case, it is okay. Yeah.
we made a lot of changes initially. We first started with Boolean values. After that, we changed them to colors. Then we changed them to these color codes. So whatever works the best. Okay. Okay. So what happens if any of these condition is satisfied? We will simply make an increment to the C value. What is the maximum C value that one can get here? What is the maximum value of C that can be achieved in this case, in our case?
5.
Exactly, it is 5 because we have a maximum number of 5 conditions only. So if all of those conditions are satisfied, the value of C would be 5. So now we can start putting that condition that if C equals to 5, then we can say that this dot strength is going to be any message that you can give to the user here, maybe excellent. Else if C equals to 4, that means one of the condition is not satisfied. In that case, we can say very good. If it is 3, then we can say good. Hope I'll not run out of statuses. So now we should be saying bad. Maybe we should not have excellent here. We should be having very good. Then we will be having good. Then we can have average. Then we can have bad. This dot strength, in that case, it can be maybe very bad. So what is the else condition? Can someone tell me what is this else condition? Will there be any scenario where the control will reach this else condition in this if else ladder?
There will be, sir. There will be such a condition.
But that stage is?
Well, if it is 0, right?
If?
Like if none of the conditions are being satisfied in that case.
So yeah, what happens in case user writes a long string and then deletes everything, then they will come back to this condition only. That means there is nothing entered in the text input box. So in that case, we can give the initial message. That was this. Please enter a valid password. Okay. So we have created this method. Now what we'll be doing is we will be invoking this method at the end of this watcher implementation. So this is the ending of the for loop. So what will I do is I'll say this dot calculate strength. I believe it should work. So right now it is saying that the password strength is nothing. If I enter G, then it is not changing. Enter a valid password.
Oh, actually, I think, sir, The condition is not. I mean, like every time we calculate the strength, we are making the that C as 0. Is that right or
Yeah, that's correct.
okay?
Because we are iterating over that array after that.
Okay, okay, okay.
So
Then it
why
is
it is
something
not
else.
working? Stable strength. So there is no typo, I guess. strength. Trength. So after that, we are invoking this function to start calculate right after for loop. So inside for loop, we are seeing this.
Okay, we may try logging C and see what its values are at that. Not in the loop, but perhaps before the condition check or after that.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, here it will be 0 only, no?
I
After the
just want
for.
to check that if the control is even entering into this function or not.
Yeah, that is fine. That is fine. That we can check. No, the invocation should be happening, I think, because anyway, watch is going to
Okay,
invoke
there
that.
is something else. Pass reference error. Track is
Exactly.
not defined. 24. I guess we have made some error here. Okay, so we are using track here directly. We should be using as this dot track.
This dot track. Okay, okay. And in the for loop also element in this dot track. Yes, sir. There. Mhm. That is fine, I think.
Yeah, it is getting changed now. So for H5, it is now bad. It is now average. It is now good, and it is now very good. So if I remove this, it became good, average, bad, very bad, and please enter the value pass. All right, yeah. So this is it. Okay, I think we have completed what we intended to cover in this session. I hope we even complete the problem statement. So the other labels will have a red background color. All right, I guess we have added that strength meter at last, but that is fine. So yeah, let me know in case there are any issues with respect to this implementation. This is a quite simple implementation that one can probably think of. As I have already mentioned that there are a lot of optimizations possible here, because what is happening right now is for every change in the input text value, this entire definition is running. But this is happening so fast right now that we are not able to find out whether this is basically too much costly, but yes, it is. So there are a lot of possibilities through which you can optimize this code, and yes, you can improve the performance of this application. So are there any issues, any doubts related to this implementation?
So can you scroll down, please?
Sorry, can you
Scroll down. Actually, I wanted to know where you had implemented that method. Okay, at the end, this dot calculate.
this
Yeah,
calculates
yeah, I
fine?
wanted to know so where you had implemented it. Yeah, got it.
Okay, I have implemented it in the method section, but I have invoked it at the end of the watcher
And that's
definition.
because the any change has to be reflected in the password strength also, right? That's yeah.
Yes. Now, what you could do here is that instead of creating a separate method, just copy this code or cut this code and paste it instead of this function call here. That would also work fine. But right now, I have just created a separate method so that we can achieve some a portion of modularity in this implementation. Okay, so yes, any questions, any doubts? All right. So I believe there are no doubts. If there are no doubts, then I guess we can quickly proceed with the tic-tac-toe upgradation that was given as the assignment. Let me see what it was. So the first one is quite simple. I hope you all should be able to do that. But the third one may require uh, some amount of code to be written. Okay, so we basically need to add some text like this, which is going to keep track of how many wins or losses were registered by each of the users. So this is what we need to do. So for that, I basically need to get that code. So okay. So that was available in one of the groups. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So what will I do is I'll simply clone this repository and we'll make the required changes here. Okay. So we come here, create a new folder called, I'm cloning it here. So you can simply use it. Git clone. The name is going to be Tech Pro. So it has created a folder for me here, tic-tac-toe. What would I be doing here is I would be opening the view part of it, and I would be making changes only to the view component based implementation. So maybe I can close the server for the previous application and I can use it for this application. So I guess this is the implementation that we want to change, or this one. Oops. Okay, this is the composed component. Yeah, that's it. So this is binded with which HTML file? There's no component called text, right? This is code. And then we have just go here. Okay, I guess we are here. We need to change this implementation. So that means we have to use index2.html and this triple T composed vue.js.com. Oh, sorry, vue.js. So what we need to do is we need to add those two paragraphs as we saw. I'll just copy these and I'll paste them as it is here. Can someone tell me where shall I paste this code that I have just copied? In which template? In tick or in this board component? Yes, any idea, any suggestions?
So it should be in board, sir, no?
It should be in both. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I should bind them inside a paragraph tag. If I have created a paragraph tag and we have these variables x wins, o wins, x losses, o losses, and draw. So that means we also need to create these many variables in a data function for this component. So we are in the board component. Let me create all of these variables. X wins. The initial value should be 0. Okay, x losses. Okay, so all right. Do you think that I need these many variables? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables? Do you think?
Well, one optimization that we can make here, sir, is that we can subtract, from the other one. Like there are only two players, so if there are two matches and one player has won one match, then the other player must have won one match. Or but then there is draw also, no?
Yes.
So then in that case, I think we need to keep track of that as well.
So how many variables do we require in total?
So three
X wins.
three
I think
variables.
yeah, 3 should suffice. Let's see. So all of these will start with 0. See, for X, we can say X wins and X losses and draw are the ones. But for O, what we can say here is I hope you agree with this, right? If X has won X matches, then O should have, sorry, if X has lost X matches, so O should have won Y matches. Sorry, not Y matches, actually X matches. That means the number of losses registered by the X player should be the number of wins registered by O player. Do you think it's correct?
Yes, sir. There are only two players, so they are both dependent on each other. The outputs.
The number of losses will be equivalent to the number of wins for the other player. In case of draw, we are having this. So instead of draw here, maybe what I can do is I can have a variable name total. So this is going to keep a track of how many matches have been played in total. So if I want to find out the number of draws, can someone tell me how can I find out? See, I have 3 variables, X wins, X losses, and total. If I want to find out the number of draws between these two players, how can I find out? So what I can do is I can subtract the number of wins and losses registered by a player from the total. That is going to give me the number of draws. Is that correct? Is there any difficulty understanding this logic? How are we calculating the draws here?
I think it is clear, sir, because there are only two other variables like X wins and X losses. So if we are counting only the total number of matches, then if we subtract both of those values, the other values X wins and X losses from the total, then what we should end up getting is the draws, like the number of draws only.
Correct.
So then I think it is fine.
Okay, so that is fine. Now we also need to make some changes in these methods here so that we can change the values of these X wins, X losses, and whatever variables we have created right now. So these comments are going to help us. I'm not going to, iterate over this entire code and explain you how this is working. I guess this has already been done in the lecture. So what would I do instead here is just add the required code. So here this comment is telling me that this is the condition where X is winning. So if X is winning, what I can do is I can make an increment in the X win variable. And what else do I need to change here? I also need to change the total. Because if X is winning, that means one match has also been completed. So the total number of matches should get incremented. Similarly, if O is winning here, so I should be incrementing what? I should be incrementing X losses and the total matches too. So this is the draw case. In draw case, what should I increment? Should I increment X wins or should I increment X losses?
Total only.
Yes. At this place, we just need to increment total.
So one question here, sir. Since we are incrementing the total here only, then I don't think that we would require the other total increments that we are doing in the condition also. Okay, because that is because we are returning at that point itself.
Yes,
Is that the case?
correct.
All right,
Because
sure,
yeah,
sure, sure. Yeah, understood. Because that execution is stopping right there. So
it is getting terminated right there.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Sure, sure. Thank you.
Okay, so this is done. I hope this should work. Okay, I believe. Let's see. I would just open it. Okay, let me create a server here itself. So I put here. But wait, this is not what we want to run. I think this is running index.html. Yeah, it will. So what will I do is I'll just open it in the browser. So here we are getting that data, wins, losses, and all. So this is X. So here has won. So the number of wins registered by O, they are 1. Losses by X are 1. Number of draws as well. Okay, so we are able to maintain that data. But don't you think there is something missing here?
Play again button.
Exactly. We are liking a play again button here because if we will refresh, then everything will be gone. So let's see if we can add a play again button here as well. Uh, let's add that button here. This button is going to call some method. That function or that method or function will do something. We'll define what all things need to be done. Let's say that function name is going to be play again. Now let us see where we should update this or we should create this function. So I'm creating this function here at this place. The name is play again. This function is not accepting any arguments. So what should it do? Hence, play again is going to reset everything. So we have to find out what all things we need to reset. So you don't need to, really look at the code and see what all things need to be reset. You can simply go back to a data function and see that these were the initial values and this is what you need to change. So I'll just go there and I'll change these two things. One is board, so we have to use this here. Other thing is next.
And the message that comes up, sir, also that congratulations or whatever. So that also we need to reset, no? Because we are trying to play again, so that previous message will be there. In this case, I think. Like in this case, if you click on play again, but the button is not there yet.
Okay. All right, but I think that also raises one more question. That play again button should not be enabled every time. It should only be enabled when a game has been completed.
Right, sir, right.
So we need to keep this button disabled in certain conditions. So let's say we find to create some variable here. Let's say the variable name is say
We can use computed property, right? Result equal to or
The board is
yeah,
anyway checking for
because
the win or low. That the result basically, as you mentioned correctly. So I think if we rely on that only, we should be able to get it.
why this is same solution is the issue. these two lines. Okay, so we have created a disabled status, but status variable. So status, so we should be creating it here as well. So status, the initial value of it should be. We keep it false. So this is false. That means disabled is false. That means this is it. So I think we can keep a not here. So now what will happen is when you will start this game for the first time, since the value of the status variable is false, this false will become true and this disabled attribute will become true. That means the button will get disabled when the user is visiting this web page for the first time. And as soon as the game gets over, that means where the game is getting over, okay, so when the user basically clicks it, then we have to change it again. But before that, so as the X is winning here, what is happening is the game is getting finished. In that case, we should be enabling this status button. So what I should do is I should make this dot status equals to, should I make it true or false?
True, no sir, because the status is
Should be true.
giving us whether the game is completed or not. That is the status. So if it is completed, then it should be true, right sir?